Hey, good morning. So I want to talk today about running a business and being primary caregiver. This is now my sixth attempt at doing this video because Wi-Fi and Facebook don't seem to be supporting me today. So I'm going to get right in and really keep my fingers crossed that this one is going to work. So if you see me pop up loads on your timeline today, it's not my fault. So today I want to talk about my experiences of being primary caregiver and running a business. And for me today, this is really topical because it's the first day of the Easter holidays. So all three of my children are off school. Now, one of my highest values, if not the highest value, is family and my children. And in my model of the world, being home with my children so that I am not outsourcing my childcare is fundamental to how I want to live our life and how I want my family to be brought up. I don't pass judgment on any other choices, but that for me is really important. And every single business that I have built over the last 14 years has been about putting that at the core of our family life. In our situation, my husband does a 9 to 5 job. However, that's rarely 9 to 5. Often it ends up being he's at the office from 8 till 6 and beyond. And then he has a long commute on top of that, sometimes commuting for up to and beyond an hour and a half each day. So he isn't here for the bulk of the school day. He isn't here for most of the holidays, the Easter holidays. In the UK, we have 13 weeks school holidays. And then by the time my children are at 3 different schools at the moment. So by the time we factored in things like Ofsted days and inspection days and teacher training days, then it ends up being about 14 and a half days of the 14 and a half weeks of the year that I am not able to work full time in my business. And I think the reason I wanted to talk about this is that recently I've been doing an entrepreneur mastermind with Rob Moore, who, if you don't know him, go and find out who he is, but he's my current mentor. And one of the things he talked about a lot was being aware of your energy throughout the day. And he time blocks, he has charted everything, when his peak times for creativity are, when his peak energy times are, when he's better at doing sales, when he's better at doing lives. He's monitored absolutely everything about his own energy. And he's very clear that his success as an entrepreneur has been because he is able to capitalize on his productivity between the hours of 6 and 10 a.m. Because that is when he is at his best. That's when he's freshest. And interestingly for me, that is when I am at my best. That's when I'm most creative. That's when I'm most switched on. I don't have an awful energy lull like I have in the afternoons. I find it very difficult to be productive after I've really eaten much. And I kind of come alive again towards the evening. But for me, mornings is the time that happens. In term time, of course, as primary caregiver, between the hours of 7 and 9 a.m., I am the one who is having to get the children out of bed, often dragging them, often having arguments about whether they want to get up, ensuring that they've had some breakfast, that they've got the right clothes on, that the homework's done, that the right paperwork is in their bags, making sure they get onto the bus, that they've got all the equipment they need, and all of those pressures. And then for some of them, I have to do the school run as well. So I have to actually get them there, make sure they're happy, make sure, I guess as well, I'm in charge of making sure everyone's emotional welfare is okay, because often the pressures of school, they come out in the car in the morning when everyone's a little bit worried about or anxious. So my responsibilities early in the morning, when I am freshest, happen in the car or at home when my attention has to be on the family. And part of me, that's okay, because that's what I've chosen for our lives, that the family come first and that I am here to do that. However, we get in this routine, and I get in a work routine where between 9 and 3, I am solidly focused on work. And then from 3 o'clock, I begin my school run. I'm normally in the car for about an hour and a half, but by the time I've picked children up and taken them to clubs and all of that stuff, if I look at work again that day, probably won't be till I sit down and scroll through my phone for half an hour at about 6:30 after I've done dinner, before we do bedtimes. So when the children are off school for up to 14 weeks in the holidays, my timeline for my business is completely knocked out of kilter. And so I want to just talk through, now that they're older, what happens for me. So knowing that my energy is really good between 6 and 10 a.m., I let the children stay up really late in the holidays. They love it because they think they're getting a treat. What I'm actually doing is making them super tired so that they, in theory, will sleep in. For two of my children, that works really, really well. Actually, I'll be lucky if one of them gets up at 10. It's more likely going to be 11. But it does work well. If they do wake up, they're a bit tired, so they have an easy start. They'll go and watch some TV, and that's when they're allowed their screen time, so I can really focus. My son actually does tend, even if he's had a late night, he'll still wake at 7:30. By that time, I will have done some concentrated work for an hour and a half, so he then just needs to, be encouraged to go make his own breakfast. He needs a little bit of a cuddle, and then he'll go and watch some TV, or he'll do some quiet drawing, or he'll do some reading himself. Obviously, my children are a little bit older. They're now 14, 10 and 9. But because they have grown up with me working from home, they do understand that there are boundaries, and they know that they're welcome to come and see me in my office, in my study, but that when I'm in here, I'm working. And then the rest of the time, I try to be as present for them as possible. So I do as much work as I can between 6 and 10 a.m. during the holidays. And then I will be totally with them as much as I possibly can. Full attention, probably till about 4 o'clock, because by then we've been out for the day. We've probably done an activity. We've gone and got some fresh air. They're then tired, like they will have done something physical during the day. So then before I begin cooking dinner and whatever else, I then will take an hour where, again, they'll go off and do something quiet for themselves and unwind, or go and play, or more likely fight with each other, because let's face it, that's what siblings do. And I will then have a concentrated hour in the evening at that time, 4 till 5. And yes, it does mean that I don't get as much work done. But that means in term time, I have to plan and prep for what's coming ahead. So as many of my podcasts are recorded in advance and they're scheduled and the social media posts have gone out for them, content for my membership, other than me having to turn up and do the sessions that are part of what they pay for, so that I'm actually physically present. Other than that, everything for the membership is prepped way in advance. And I will say that actually sometimes that is a challenge. So for the summer holidays, there's normally 3 months of content that I need to produce, which I'm often finalising in June and July, so that, I then have as much time with my children as possible. But there are ways to do it. And when the children were tiny, people used to say to me, how on earth are you fitting it all in? Because I always had my children at home. And actually for me, because whatever I'm working on at the time really matters to me, that is the thing that I'm excited about doing. So when the children slept, it was more important to me to build my business and take tiny actions than to go and do yet another Hoover and pick up all the Lego off the floor. It's about prioritizing. And I know that whenever I work in my business, I feel really energized. And so it means that when I come back to the children, actually, rather than having spent all that time doing the washing up or doing yet more washing, I'm then really, really focused with the kids as well, and I'm energized because I love what I do. So for any of you out there who are running businesses and are really thinking, well, how on earth is this going to work in the holidays? It just will, but you have to find those pockets of time and be okay with the fact you can't go at it as hard as you normally do, but that it can absolutely work. So yes, there are things that I step back from during the holidays, but it's about the prep part in term time as well. So I'm really curious to hear from lots of you about your experience of running your own business from home, being a freelancer, and how that works for you in your family. So let me know in the comments what happens for you when it's holiday time, how that works out for you and your business. Do you manage to keep going like I do, but just changing your hours and changing your focus? Or actually do you just stop for a while? So there's challenges in that too, because then you have to pick up the reins at the end again. So for me, I like to keep my complete break from work for when we go away. And I'd love to hear what your experience of that is too. That's it from me.